If you hear the sound of a nuclear alarm, don't lose a single second. Use every available source you can: messengers, television, radio or public loudspeakers. They'll tell you how much time you have. And if evacuation isn't announced, then everything remains in your hands. If the alarm catches you outside, get to shelter as fast as you can. Subway, basement, bomb shelter, anything you can reach will do. If you're in a car, stop, duck below the windshield and cover your head. If you're at home, get to the nearest shelter. Decide to stay home. Seal every window, close the curtains, turn off water, gas and electricity. Choose the safest room, usually the bathroom. Cover the floor with towels or blankets and lie face down. If you're far from the city, find shelter. If there's none, hide in a ditch or behind anything that can shield you. Lie down, cover your head with your hands and stay still. And wherever you are, never forget your emergency kit, because if you've survived the explosion, it doesn't mean it's over. It means it's only just beginning. After a nuclear explosion, you should stay in the shelter for as long as possible, ideally longer, but at least for 24 hours. And if you weren't in a shelter, your main goal is to reach an evacuation point, or at least an area where survival is possible. Both for surviving inside a shelter and for evacuation, your go-bag will be absolutely essential. But do you really need to gear up the way I am right now? Let's take a look at what that go-bag actually is. First of all, pack a full change of clothes into your go-bag, from socks and underwear to pants, sweaters and even a light jacket. Clean clothes will help you stay dry, warm and safe in case the ones you're wearing become contaminated by radiation. Just make sure to seal everything in airtight zip bags, or better yet, vacuum seal them if you can. Next in priority are external protective items. Disposable coveralls, gloves, shoe covers, head covers and anything that can add a layer of protection. For respiratory safety, you'll need bandanas, masks or respirators. The higher the protection class, the better. It's important to understand, you cannot shield yourself from radiation itself, but you can from radioactive dust, and there will be a lot of it. So you don't really need a heavy hazmat suit or a full gas mask. There are much simpler options. From gadgets, you'll need a radio, preferably a small one that runs on batteries. When all other communication is gone, it will be your only link to information and the outside world. Bring extra batteries too. A good knife, flint, compass, whistle and rope will never be a waste of space. Emergency blankets and chemical hand warmers don't take up much room, but can save you from the cold when it matters most. Flashlights, both battery-powered and rechargeable ones, will give you light, which is just as crucial. And don't forget money and documents. A full-scale apocalypse isn't the only scenario you should be prepared for. Now the first aid kit. A standard car kit already covers the basics, but you should always add your personal medication. No one knows your needs better than you do. And don't forget potassium iodide, if you can find it in pharmacies. And finally, food. The best store-bought option is chocolate bars, small, compact and calorie-dense. Also, take as much water as you can, preferably in small bottles. Emergency rations work great in these situations too, but we'll talk about those later. Power banks can keep your devices running, or even help you start a fire if it comes to that. And just like that, your go-bag is ready. Well, I hope everyone understood the metaphor with the suitcase. We'll leave it for the movies and the atmosphere of this video. In reality, everything needs to go into a backpack, preferably a tactical one, spacious, reliable and comfortable. You may have to walk dozens of kilometers with it. The first thing you need to do is check the radio. Scanning through the frequencies, I listen to every trace of static. One way or another, someone should be able to reach us, to tell what happened and what we're supposed to do next. But I didn't catch a single word. It seems nearby radio towers has been destroyed, which means we have to move to plan B. Our goal now is to reach any evacuation point, and for that we have to move away from the epicenter of the blast. We can determine where the epicenter was by the traces of the shockwave, for example the collapsed side of buildings or torn out trees. And once we found the right direction, it's important to keep moving that way. And to stay on course, you need to know how to use a compass. Look, place the compass perfectly flat, then turn it until the marked tip on the needle aligns with north, with the letter N. In this position, the compass shows the directions correctly. Remember the direction you head in and keep following it. After walking about 5 kilometers, I came across a bunker, standing alone in the middle of a field, a real shelter with a hermetic blast door. Maybe there were even people inside. But judging by how the levers have fused in place, no one has been there for years. And even though we managed to open the shelter, it offers almost no real use now. Once, back in the distant 60s, the United States and the Soviet Union built countless nuclear shelters. They had air filtration systems, toilets, water boilers, food reserves, protective gear, lecture rooms, medical station and a lot more. Some of them were large enough for thousands of people to live in. But today, all of that has long been looted and destroyed. And if tomorrow we run from a nuclear blast into one of these old shelters, it may protect us from the explosion itself, thanks to thick walls and depth, but not from radiation. And our shelter, at least, was still closed, so there is no radiation inside, and we could rest for a few minutes and breathe freely without a gas mask. By the way, speaking of gas masks, are they even necessary? As I said yet, a gas mask protects your airways from radioactive dust. After the explosion, the amount of dust in the air will remain extremely high for several days. But can an old simple filter help? Gas masks use different types of filters. They are marked with a letter and a number. The letter indicates the type of protection, and the number its level. And about 90% of these markings refer to different gases, which in the case of nuclear fallout don't matter to us at all. The only letter that matters is P. It stands for aerosol protection. If you take two people, one wearing a gas mask, the other a respirator, you won't smell cigarette smoke through the gas mask, while through a respirator you still might. But if you take an air freshener, neither person will smell it. Remember the COVID era and FFP1, 2, 3 respirators. That same letter P refers to aerosol protection, which means a high-quality respirator is perfectly suitable against nuclear dust. And don't forget, a gas mask also protects physically, it shields the eyes and face. That's why a kit like this is just as effective. And of course, carrying 10 respirators is far easier than carrying 10 filters and a gas mask. Old civil defense manuals and posters even recommended making at least a simple cotton gas mask. And it's true, even such a basic layer will filter up to 90% of the dangerous dust. And that is far better than burning your lungs after the first few breaths. Meanwhile, we had already covered about 10 kilometers. So far, everything around us was empty wasteland. Not a single trace of people, but hope was still there. Moving in this kind of suit, breathing through a gas mask with condensation dripping inside is far harder than it seems. And if hunger can be endured for a while, thirst will start pressing much sooner. We brought small bottles of water, so they could be finished quickly and thrown away. And we also have this emergency water supply, 10 pouches of 50 milliliters, meant to last for a day, though drinking from them turned out to be uncomfortable, and I honestly don't understand the point of this format. But if the journey lasts longer than just one day, the water will eventually run out. For an absolute last resort, I brought this portable survival filter. It works very simply. Fill a bottle with water, screw it onto the filter, and clean water drips out the other side. But I would only drink it in a critical situation, if the choice is between survival and dehydration. In theory, you can check it with a dosimeter, for example a device like this one, which shows both the current radiation level and the accumulated dose. But back in 60s, people in the USSR were also issued portable dosimeters like the DKP-50A. You would clip it to your clothing and at the end of the day check how much radiation you had absorbed. To read it, you had to hold it up to your eye and look toward the light. Ours, by the way, had somewhat accumulated 7 Röntgen already. Meanwhile, I pushed on through the silence. With every step the next one became harder, and the only thought in my mind was not to drift off the path. At one point I had to make my way through the forest, and that is far more dangerous and far more difficult. Every step has to be exact. Rushing is strictly forbidden, because any injury out here means death, and there's no emergency or ambulance here. In the forest, visibility is limited, and in a gas mask it becomes hard even to watch your footing. Your pace drops to barely 1 km/h. But just when you start losing hope, fate gives you a new one, and as I stepped out of the forest, I saw a road not far from me. The road had long been abandoned, no signs of people or cars anywhere, but it was still something. And nothing could have cut through that moment of relief like rain. If you see rain, snow or any form of precipitation, get under a roof immediately. Radioactive fallout will likely kill you even in a hazmat suit, not to mention regular clothing. I reached the road just in time and managed to run to a nearby building. It seemed this place had once been a school. Classrooms, children's supplies, posters, all of it now scattered, abandoned and no longer needed. And where the children ended up is better not to think about. But it looked like people had been there recently. In one of the rooms I found hastily opened boxes of gas masks. Someone tried to save themselves by taking them out, but they were already unusable. Whether from age or from a hit of the blast, the masks had fused together into a single solid mess. While the rain kept falling, I had to use time wisely. To restore energy, we brought an emergency ration like this one. Dry, compressed blocks that contain everything the body needs to stay alive. Simply put, it's a full daily ration reduced to the smallest possible weight. Each pack has 9 blocks, 300 calories each, and if you use them carefully, they can last for more than a day. Chocolate bars are also high in calories, but they are far less balanced. While we still have time, let's take a look at what nuclear explosion actually is. If we take a map of this scale, a tactical nuclear strike would look no bigger than a match head. Only a small part of the city would be turned to the radioactive ash, and even wider area would be contaminated by radiation. There is a very useful website where you can simulate the detonation of any nuclear bomb in a random city. For example, if you place the point over the Kremlin and choose the bomb drop on Hiroshima, a 15 kiloton charge would detonate like this. But what do all these circles mean? The very center, a radius of 20 meters, penetrates any nuclear bunker. The next yellow circle is the fireball radius. The temperature here is so high that everything inside burns away completely. People, cars, buildings, leaving only dust. The green circle marks the radius of lethal radiation. Survival here is still impossible. And this large yellow circle covering all of central Moscow is thermal radiation, and the website itself describes it best. As we can see, not even the entire city is destroyed, but radiation contamination will spread for hundreds of kilometers. And now let's look at the strategic weapons. The largest bomb in the active US arsenal can incinerate an entire small city, and its radioactive fallout would spread for more than 1,000 kilometers. The radio was still silent, but the rain had stopped, and that meant it was time to move on. Outside it was getting darker and colder. Despite the short rest, my strength was fading. Whether from the radiation dose or simple exhaustion, every next step became a struggle. But what if I really had to spend the night out here? First, I would need to find a place sheltered from the wind as much as possible. On the ground, you lay whatever you have. We had a sleeping mat, for example. And in a critical situation, you can cover yourself with an emergency blanket. It reflects all the heat your body produces, and if you wrap yourself tightly, the temperature under it can be about 5 degrees higher than outside. But the very important thing is that you cannot stay under such a blanket for more than 3 hours. After that, the condensation will build up so much that you risk getting wet and freezing even faster. The gas mask had already done its job. From this point on, I would continue without it. But after 2 hours of sleep, walking became even harder. But dragging myself forward step by step, I finally saw a road with cars passing by. Could it really be happening? A little more, just a little more, step by step, and we reached the evacuation point. The first thing is to remove all contaminated clothing and go through decontamination. But the journey is far from over, because, as I've said before, after a nuclear explosion, life will have to be lived in a completely different way.